Hey, what's up guys, it's Roger here, and today we will talk about arrays. So here's the lesson plan for today, and we're going to talk exactly about what are arrays, how to create arrays, how to access data in arrays, and how to loop through arrays. Now what exactly are arrays? Well, imagine arrays as a bookshelf or a closet which stores many different variables. So pretty much an array is like a bookshelf that stores many different values. This can be useful, for example, imagine you're making an admin panel and you need an admin whitelist. So you would have an array store the user IDs of each and every person who is an admin. Imagine you have an inventory system. You'd store all the values of the inventory item in an array. Now, for inventory system, you'd most likely use a table/dictionary, but we will learn that in the future videos. However, arrays are the first step to understanding those. Now, how do we create an array? Well, actually creating an array is pretty simple. You just create a normal variable, and let's just call it cool array. And then, instead of just having a string or some numbers, you have these brackets, and inside these brackets we can store values. So we can store value 1, and then when you want to store the next value, just put a comma, put a value 2, put a value 3, put a value 45, put a value 676, and so on. And if you take a look, all we're doing is we're storing the values 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 to 6, and 26 all in one variable, all in one array. So it's a list. It's pretty much like a list. However, a list is a bit different, but I hope you understand what I mean with this. Now, okay, we created this array. How do we access data from this array? How do we access these variables? How do we access these values? Note to people, you can also store strings. You can say Bob, and then you can say John. I don't know. You can store anything pretty much in arrays. You can store another array. You can store array 1, and then you can store a second array and say 1, 2, 3, and then the second array will hold John, Bob, and so on. So pretty much you can create arrays within arrays. So this would be actually double indexing. So I'll teach you that later in this video as well. So now to the simplified question. How do we access the value in this array? Well, in order to access the values, you just call the array. You just, type the array, then array name, so the variable it's assigned to, and then you put square brackets behind it. And this is like a little indicator, hey, we're going to try to access the array, and we're going to access it at this position, at this key. So here's the one difference you'll hear between dictionaries or /tables and arrays. Arrays use indexes and values. Dictionaries use keys and values. Now, what are indexes and values? Pretty much, it's just the position. This 1 is located at the position 1. This 2 is located at the position 2. This 3 is located at the position 3, and so on. So basically, they're assigned to they're assigned to their position, and the position is displayed through the number. So it doesn't matter what values in front. You can have this 1425 is in position 1. 1521 is in position 2. 36 is in position 3. Now, note, for people who will not learn only Lua, this is, in my case, I've only seen this in Lua, where it starts at 1 and continues. Usually, in most of the other languages, it starts at 0 and then goes to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. In Lua, however, it starts at 1 and then goes to 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, that's great. So we know they're stored in positions. Now, how do we access it? Well, it's pretty simple. You just put the position you want into these square brackets. So if we want the variable 1521, we check, okay, what position is it at? It's 1, 2, it's at position 2, so we just put a 2 here. Now, to show you that it's correct, we'll just print it out. Print cool array 2. Now if we play, it will print out 1521. Great. If we print out 1, $1,425. Nice. So, what if we don't know what values we want to add to this array? So we just want to add a value at a certain position after we created this array, and we want to add more values to it at a later position. Well, it's actually pretty simple. All you have to do is, if you, for example, type out we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 values, and if you want to index the 9th value, which clearly does not exist in this array, it would literally just return nil. Or in other languages, it would return some garbage, so some other kind of values that's stored in the memory. But we don't have to worry about that. For us, it'll just be nil. Nothing exists. What if we want to make something exist? Well, it's pretty straightforward. All we just do is say coolArray.9, the value at 9th position will equal, I don't know, cool boy. And now if we print coolArray9, it will say cool boy. So this is how you assign values to an array. You literally just type out the array name to which it's assigned, then square brackets, and then set the position, and then you just assign the variable to that position. Pretty straightforward. Now, I was showing you guys how to create arrays within arrays earlier, and all we do is just have square brackets and then comma square brackets. Now, this is actually pretty straightforward as well. So let's have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 2 arrays. Now, we want to access this value right here. Actually, this value, number 2 in the first array. So, pretty intuitively, we just put 1. Okay, so we get the values here. Now, this is where going to have to kind of gets tricky if you don't understand, but once we index the array for its first position, it returns us another array. So pretty much we try to get the value at the first position, and instead of getting some 1, 2, 3, we get an array, and then in that array we will have to find the value we want. Now in that array we want the position at 2. So you see what I'm doing here? I'm using 2 square brackets. This square bracket is for the first array, this square bracket is for the second array, and so on. If we have 3 arrays, it'll be 3 square brackets, 1 for each array. We are going to have to index each array to find the value we want. And you guys will usually most likely use dictionaries and tables for multiple arrays because keys are a bit more convenient, but they have their uses. People will use double arrays, 2-dimensional arrays many times, so they have their uses. Okay, so filling up 2-dimensional arrays will be a little bit harder, so let's just do it with a 1-dimensional array. Imagine we create an array and we want to fill it up somewhere outside. So somewhere out of here. Not solidly define it. Well, that's where our previous video about loops will come in. We will often use for loops when working with arrays and tables. This is where for loops are going to be very, very important. Now let's just create a solid for loop for I equals 1, and then we go up to 5. let's go to 10, and then we go up 1, 2. And then what we're gonna do is I equals I. And let's actually print out I. So what did I do here? Well, I created a normal loop that goes from 1 to 10. And what I'm doing here actually is, since I starts from 1 and it goes to 10, I'm literally filling up the values from 1 to 10 in this array with I. So pretty much the number at position 1 will be 1, the number at position 2 will be 2, and so on. To prove this, let's just play, clear out this. There we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Great. Look at this. We got an array to fill itself with values outside of the actual where we define it. So for loops are very important. Now you might be saying, you know, this isn't important. Why would I still need to do this like this? Why do I need to use for loops if I can just easily do 1, 2, 3? Well, let's give another use for loops. Let's create an admin whitelist system. Now, most likely, well, actually all the time, unless you're doing some kind of really weird whitelist system, you're going to store the values of the IDs of the player on the server. But we're just going to do it on the client. So let's just get some random IDs, and then we can continue. I'm just gonna copy and paste random IDs. Okay, great. So we have these IDs. These are all the people we want to whitelist. Now imagine a player joins, and we want to check if the player is whitelisted. Now, usually we'd use the game.playersadded event, but we're on a local script and this isn't serious, so we're just going to use a simple loop. So let's get the player by saying local player, and then we get the game object. So the game is pretty much everything in here. This is the entire game. And then we're going to get players. So we get the players, and inside here are all the players in the game. And we're just going to get local player. Local player is nothing but your player. It's the player on this computer. And then we're just going to get user ID. And let's call this player ID. And let's create a variable called a whitelisted. Let's call it false. Now, we'll print out whitelisted at the end of the code. Actually, we'll just say give the players.local player, so we get the player, and then we can get the name by just doing .name, that this is the name of the player, and then dot destination. You watch my previous videos. Has been whitelisted. There we go. If whitelisted, then boom. So pretty much we're gonna set the value of whitelisted to true if the admin is whitelisted and false if he isn't. Else, no open. Great. And now you're wondering, well, how are we gonna figure that out? Well, we have the array of all the admins, and all we're gonna do is a loop through it. So let's create this. I equals 1, and then we're actually going to use the pound sign hashtag, and after that we'll say cool array. So what this little hashtag or pound sign does is it gets the length of this array. So in this case the length would be 1, 2, 3, 4. So if you create any kind of array or table or anything and then you put a little hashtag in front of it, it'll return the length of it. Alright, Now, in the future video, we'll learn how to use iterators, so in pairs, I pairs, and so on, but that's in the future video. We're just doing something really simple. Okay, so great. We created a loop that goes from the first position to the last position. Nice. Now, what do we do? Well, actually, it's pretty simple. Now we're going to use our knowledge from the previous video about decision making, so if then else, and we're just going to compare the player ID equals cool array hi. So if our player ID equals to one of these IDs, then we print out, let's print out the player ID just so people know. And then let's make whitelisted true. And then we break. So break, if you watch the other videos, we just exit out of this loop so that we don't have to test anything else right away. Saves time, more efficient. Else we just say whitelisted equals false. Great. Now let's actually play the game. And then we see that the RID is 7707 so on. And Rogaru has been whitelisted. Nice. Now that doesn't matter where I put it. Even though this is in the first position, I could put it in the last position. It'll still whitelist me here. And let's actually remove one value just so you guys can see how hashtag works. Bam, I'm still whitelisted. Now what if my ID doesn't exist? Rogaru has not been whitelisted. Wow, we just created a simple admin whitelist system using an array and a loop. Now, there are better ways, like I said, to do this using iterators, but you know, we created an admin whitelist system. We would do this on the server with a player added event, but it works. Wow, nice. So, this is how we loop through arrays. And this is why they're also useful. Anyways, that was it for the video today, guys. I will be making some more videos about tables, dictionaries, iterators, and so on really soon. And thank you for watching. Bye.